Hi, my name is Matthew Belisario. Welcome to another edition of the Belisario Sonic YouTube channel. Today, a video about why I collect vinyl records. And this might, intrigue some people out there, maybe to leave their comments on why they collect vinyl records. I'd love to hear your comments and the primary reasons why you like to collect records, because there's a lot of different reasons out there why people prefer collecting these versus collecting perhaps these. So let's just dig right into this. For me, there's several reasons why I like to collect records. The first one being I love music. I'm a musician. I love to write my own music and record my own music. And I've always been into music since I was a kid. And my first record was a Kiss Alive 2 record that I begged my mom for, and probably pestered her enough to where she actually bought me the record. So my record collecting goes back to when I was 8 years old. And I've been collecting records ever since, on and off, throughout my entire life. So there is a certain historicity, a certain historical connection to that's what I grew up with. But the primary reason is because I love good music. And I love listening to the music on records. Now, it doesn't mean I don't collect CDs, because I have quite a large CD collection as well. But it's not nearly as prized as my records are. So here's some reasons why. First of all, I prefer records still to this day over CDs or streaming, things like that. All things being equal. The mobility thing is another issue that I'll get to here towards the end. But for listening to music at home, sitting down, listening to music, which a lot of people don't do nowadays, sadly. They don't sit down and just pay attention to the music. A lot of times they'll put it on, listen to it for background noise or something like that, but they don't sit down and actually listen to the music. And I find that a lot of younger people that I know don't even own a stereo system, which to me I find just incomprehensible. But for me, let's take a look at why I collect records, and maybe if you don't collect records, why you might consider collecting them. For one, the whole physical thing about this. I got to take this record out, put it on a record player, and the whole thing of taking it out and looking at the label, all the different labels, and the whole physical thing of the whole physical part of taking this out, putting it on the turntable, and dropping the stylus on there and listening to the record. Then after about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I got to flip it over. So it takes a little bit of focus. You got to sit there and pay attention to the music and listen to it. So that's one thing I like. Another thing I like is you have a stake in the band, in a sense. So some of your favorite bands out there, whether they're newer bands or classic bands that are still out there or bands of the past, when you buy this Thin Lizzy record, you've got a stake in Thin Lizzy. And it's almost like you're part of the band in a sense. You've invested your money in this physical medium that you now hold in your hands, and hopefully you're going to pass on to somebody. But this whole thing, you have a physical investment in the band. Now, granted, you can have that same somewhat of a physical investment with the CD as well, but it's just not the same. I mean, look at the size of this. Look at the artwork. I can actually read what's on the label and what's on the insert and things like that. So I think that the whole physicality of that, and the whole artwork, the large artwork on the covers, and then the investment in the band, that's a huge thing. The liner notes, what about that? Well, there's some cool stuff with liner notes, or lyrics even on the inside. So let's take a look at this Bill Evans, for example. This Bill Evans record. This Resonance record. Well, this is really nice gatefold record. So, you open it up. You got nice pictures on the inside. Of course, you can't get that with a CD. They're going to be tiny. And then you got a booklet in here that you can actually read. So, check that out. I can open this up and read this while I'm listening to the record or before I listen to the record, and get all kinds of cool historic information about one of my favorite artists. I got nice pictures. So that's one thing that's really, really nice. Now, I've got this same CD set here are the exact same thing. Well, what happens when I open this up? It's not so impressive. Not so, the physicality is just not there. Even with the booklet that comes with it, well, look how little it is. And it just, not the same. So the physicality is just not there with a CD. The whole sticking the CD in the player and hit and play. It's just, for me, there's nothing there physical that's really to latch onto. Then I've got the two records here, and there's also some cool things like limited pressings, which is, granted, that's probably not the big thing that draws me, but when I buy this Bill Evans record, I know it's, a number here on the back, hand numbered. There's only so many of them made. That's kind of cool for collectability, that you've invested in that limited pressing. So that's pretty cool. Another thing that I think makes a big difference is the sound. Now, a lot of people will argue back and forth about whether CD sounds better or vinyl sounds better or streaming, or Blu-ray audio, all that kind of stuff. To me, all that stuff is secondary for the most part. For me, listening to these records, I like the warmth of the sound. I like the sound of the actual stylus vibrating on the record, coming through the speakers. You're getting an analog sound. And a lot of times it'll be mastered different before that particular medium because you have some limitations with vinyl you don't have on CD. And so you get a different sound. Whether people are going to argue about whether it's better or not, it's different. And there's no doubt about that. Another thing is this historical connection that you don't have with CDs. CDs haven't been around that long. Historical connection, this Cab Calloway record here, I think this is from around the late 50s, or right around 1960, something like that. This old RCA Victor. Well, there's a historical connection with this record that you don't have with the CD. Somebody who owned this, someone bought this back in 1960 or what have you, and listened to it, and then it got passed down and ended up in my hands somehow at a record show. And so there's a historical connection, even though I don't know who owned the record before me. I know somebody did, and somebody put it on their record player and enjoyed it. And now here I am, 50 years later, 60 years later, I'm putting this same record on the record player in my house, listening to it. So there's a historicity, a historical connection that you don't get with the CD. And the historical connection goes, to other sources, like my mother. My mother bought this record when she was a kid. And I've had this very same record. And that's, God rest my mother's soul. She's gone, but I have her record here. So whenever I put this on the record player, I can think about her. And that's kind of cool. So again, there's another historic aspect to this that's pretty neat. It's a physical medium. It's, she put this on the record player to listen to it. I'm doing the same thing right now. So that's kind of cool as well. Then you've got another element that you won't get on a CD. Sure, you've got super audio CDs, things like that. But do you ever get anything like this cool UHQR kind of blue? Well, I can go buy a gold CD or a super audio CD, but whenever I take that CD out, it still looks like a CD. There's not a whole lot there that you can do with it. Well, with this here, the presentation that you can get on a vinyl record, especially nowadays with these cool reissues, well, I get this really cool box that it comes in. So again, more physicality. But can I get, these something cool like this nice booklet that comes with it, with the pictures, a technical specification manual that's a fold out that explains how my record was pressed, how it was made, special pressing, and then this real cool clear record here. So there's a lot of cool things that you just can't get with the CD. The whole vibe of everything, the whole engagement of the music is just not the same. So those are a lot of the reasons why I collect records. It's primarily for the music, but there's all kinds of other cool things that kind of go along with that and that you can kind of stumble into. And one of the things that I stumbled into when I bought that Thin Lizzy record that I'm gonna show you here, well, you've got the whole issue of the dead wax, right? So you've got what was actually, where this thing was pressed at, right? That's kind of cool. So if I take this record here, and I'm gonna grab a cloth here because I don't like to touch my records with my fingers. So I'm gonna grab a cloth, and if you look in the dead wax here on this particular record, the dead wax, of course, is right before you get to the inner label, and that's where you'll have like who mastered it, where it was pressed at. But this one here has a master disc etching on it, and the master disc pressing of this particular record was supposedly one of the better sounding records of this particular record, Thin Lizzy Fighting, American Press. And the master disc are supposed to be the better sounding ones. Now, I didn't know that when I bought that. I just ended up finding out about that on the internet when I was looking up this particular album. So just cool little things like that. And, you know, I'm not a person that buys like all these different versions of records. Like, oh, this one sounds better. This pressing is better. I got to go out and buy this other pressing of this particular record. Now, that's something that does attract a lot of record collectors. They're going to go out and try to find that exact pressing and look in the dead wax and figure out, oh, I got to have this one. Me, I'm not that doesn't matter to me as much. Now, if I find out by, you know, doing a little research that there's a particular pressing that's better, yeah, I might look at it and see if that's the one I'm getting. But I'm not, when I'm buying old records, a lot of times I'm just running across them at a record store or a flea mall or something like that, and they just happen to have a record that I don't have, and it's a you know, original pressing or an older pressing, and I'll just, hey, it's $5. It's one of the ones I want for my collection. I'll buy it. So those are a couple of other things that's kind of cool. You've got the unique pressings, the number pressings, the colored record pressings. They kind of add a little bit of fun into the whole collecting thing. And then finally, last but not least, you kind of have this archival. I was talking about the historical connection. Well, that historical connection kind of goes to an archival thing too for a lot of people. And so it's like you're amassing this this collection that you kind of get this mentality, you're saving music, you know, that this stuff might be gone one day. I've got a great collection. It's kind of a bit fantastic of an idea, but it's a fun idea that you're putting together this, what you consider to be the ultimate collection of the best music. I'm not a person that buys a record to have a complete collection. That's another thing that people like to do is, I want every Beatles record, every version. I want every single, you know, record of a certain band. I'm not one of those guys. So, for example, I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan, but there are a couple of records that I just don't like, and I won't buy them just because they're not, I wouldn't listen to them. I'm not a person that buys records as a completist, but that is something that attracts some people, and that's fine. You know, if that's one of the things that makes it fun for you to try to complete all the different versions, hey, go for it. It's, you know, everybody has their own thing. But for me, you know, right now I'm picking up a couple more. For example, I don't listen to a lot of metal anymore, but I do listen to some Iron Maiden. There were a couple of records that I didn't have that I didn't realize were really good. So I'm going back and picking up a couple of those that I wanted, that were later records that I didn't realize were really good. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to go collect every single one of their albums so that I have them all. I just don't do that generally, unless it's somebody I really like. And even then, again, I'll listen to the record. If it's something that's superfluous, maybe a greatest hits thing or something like that, and I've already got all the albums, I'm not going to buy it. Something like that. So if I have an original pressing, for example, a Fleetwood Mac Rumors, I've got, you know, a couple different pressings, original and Nautilus pressing. Am I going to go out and buy a reissue on that? No, because I've already got an original, things like that. But then you do have the whole repressing thing that's also enticing, because a lot of records that were unaffordable, such as the jazz records, that you couldn't buy those before. You couldn't find a good copy of Kinda Blue usually, but at least now you can't, an original. And so in order to get the Kinda Blue now, you would get a reissue. And then there's a little bit of fun there trying to figure out what the best reissue is. And in case you're wondering what the best reissue of Kinda Blue is, it is the UHQR version that I just showed you. And I've got a few of those. That's another story of couple of different reissues. So that's why I collect records. The main reasons. And then what are the cons? Well, the cons, obviously, you can't take a record with you in your car. Now with streaming, that's a non-issue. And it almost makes CDs almost obsolete in my opinion, because if I want to go in my car, I'm going to stream it, because the cars don't even come with CD players in them anymore. If you want a CD player, you're going to have to get a portable one and Bluetooth it in there or put it on your radio or something crazy. And then I got to carry a whole thing of CDs around. So while that was a great thing, to get rid of the cassette, the CD was a great improvement there. It's just kind of outworn its welcome, which is why I want to come to one last thing, and that is the collectability of music itself. And that is why I still buy CDs. Of course, some things you can't get on record. And there's some new bands that are putting things out that are still only on CD. And if you want it, the only way to get it's on CD or stream it. I'm still a person that likes to participate in the bands that I like, so I'll still buy CDs here and there. The whole Blu-ray audio, I think, could change the game on a lot of things for collectors. And I really think that with Blu-ray audio, and they're starting to do this with some of these new like the new Yes album I just reviewed, where it comes in a nice art book, and you've got the artwork, and then you've got 2 CDs and a Blu-ray in there. Stuff like that. That can change the game with collectability of Blu-rays. It's still not quite the same as a record, I'll give you that. But what you do have is awesome quality, and quality that doesn't degrade. On a record, it will degrade eventually if you play it long enough and play it so many times. Blu-ray audio is going to be fantastic for pretty much forever. And then also, you can also make that Blu-ray with the 5.1 mix or an Atmos mix. And then you can also have graphics on that as well, more graphics. So one thing that I really think bands should start doing is making these art book with just Blu-ray audio. Just put a Blu-ray disc in there, give us all the cool artwork, maybe a short documentary of the making of the album, because people love that. And then go ahead and give us the 5.1 mix, a good stereo mix, 24-bit. Give us the high quality. So when we open it up, we've kind of got the album with the art book. You've got your write-up in there. And then on the Blu-ray itself, you've got maybe a documentary and then this high quality audio that you can play on your home system. To me, that's where the record companies are dropping the ball. And so I would definitely, if all these bands started putting something like that out, I would definitely be interested in getting that even over a vinyl record. So I'm gonna do another video on that that's separate. Then I'm gonna go into more detail on that. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off now since it's going on about 20 minutes here. I thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care.